Daily Soccer Podcast with the Global Sports Podcast Network.
Welcome then to the Daily Premier League podcast. It is Monday, the 27th of October. Here in the UK, it's getting very cold and very dark. It's one of those funny things. I left the office today and it's only about 4:30, 4:45, and it's already getting dark. So winter seems to be setting in. It's a good job then that we have such an exciting Premier League to keep us warm and to keep us on our toes. My name is Nick Britten. I'm your host today. No Ken today. He's off rehearsing for his role as a murderous plumber in his local Amdram production. Now, I say murderous plumber. I don't know that he's done it. It's a bit of a whodunit. And he won't tell me whether he's done it. I don't even know whether he knows he's done it, because as of last week, none of the actors, and I use the term very loosely, by the way, none of the actors had seen the third act, which reveals the whodunit, but he's off rehearsing his role as Dudley the plumber. So I'm delighted stepping into his shoes, Nick Bird, Arsenal fan, podcaster of GSPN, and you'll recognise him, you'll know him, but he's looking particularly smug today as Arsenal run away with it. How are you, Nick? Great to see you.
Very calm about my football club, finally, so very happy after this weekend's football.
I bet you have. Everything seems to be falling into the place, and one of the things that we're going to be talking about in today's show is exactly that. Is the title race already over? It's not even November yet, but is the title? Can anybody catch Arsenal? I mean, Liverpool have fallen off a cliff. Man City are up and down. They're realistically the only two challenges. Or are we going to get a challenger out of absolutely nowhere? Very keen to get Nick's thoughts on Arsenal and where they all are. We're going to start with Wolves in just a moment. And, oh, dearie me, everything that's going on there, that's an absolute nightmare for the Wolves fans. They're having a terrible time. And we're going to finish the podcast by looking at our two northeast clubs, Sunderland and Newcastle, and asking the question, who is the better team and who's going to finish higher in the league? Because Sunderland have got off to an absolutely cracking start. And how refreshing is it to see a promoted side shaking things up, doing well, and even very early in the season, yes, I know there's a long way to go, disrupting the top 4 or 5. But we're going to start with Wolves, and it's all going wrong, isn't it? It's all going wrong. If you have a look at the Premier League table, there they are, down at the bottom, 9 games played, wins, 0. 2 draws. They have got a couple of points, and a couple of points in the bag, but a very damaging defeat at home to Burnley on Saturday. Nick, what's your assessment of what's going on at Wolves at the moment? And is there hope for Vito Pereira, do you think?
This Wolves team, or just the club generally, feel like a club who have potentially the lowest ambition amongst their owners of any team in the Premier League. It feels like season on season, it's the same story where they have a manager who starts the season, is gone by December, and then this guy has to kind of do a rescue job. And then they'll sell his best players in the summer and not replace them, and then try and scramble again in January after they've sacked him before December. And we're into that cycle where the manager's about to get sacked and they'll try and scramble in January. But for once, the promoted teams are here and fighting, so it feels like it might be too far gone, and it might be an indictment on myself more so. But you look at their starting lineups and you're wondering who half the players even are, which is maybe more to do with their reputation, because they're not necessarily names I don't recognise, but you just have no feelings towards quite a lot of their players. The only ones who stand out maybe are Strand Larsen, because he had a good season last year. So this squad feels really, really bad. And I know even before the season kicked off, Wolves fans were very pessimistic about this season and thought they'd be going down. And mind-blowingly, they gave the manager a new contract a month ago, a 3-year contract, when they hadn't won a game yet this season. And now we're a month later and they've still not won a game. He was shouting at the fans yesterday, and that he's not turning that around.
Well, I'll come to that in just a moment. I mean, look at the players they lost in the summer. Matheus Cunha, Ryan Nouri. I think Nelson Semedo is a big loss as well. And then sort of slightly sitting behind him, Guedes was a decent player. Fabio Silva, hit and miss, but when he's playing well, he was on his game. And if you look at the players they brought in, I mean, Strand Larsen was there last season, but he's signed after his loan period. Beyond that, you've got Tolu Arakudare, 0 goals. He's a centre forward, by the way, signed from Ghent for 26 million euros. He's a centre forward, 0 goals on Saturday. Wasn't involved. That's not great. I mean, to be fair, he might have been picked up an injury, but that's not great. Fair Lopez, £23 million. Craigie, a centre half. A loan fee of £22.5 million. John Arias, he's pretty much the only new signing he's been playing all the time. £17 million. Half of them are on the bench. Half of them aren't really playing very much. And it just feels that for the second year running, they've let go their best players and they haven't recruited to that same level. And if you look at the Wolves' top scorers this season, well, they've all got something in common. That's Santiago Bueno, Hee-Chan, Strand Larsen, Krejci, Gomez, and Munetsi. They've all got something in common in as much as they've scored 1 goal. So top scorer, joint top scorers with 1 goal. And that probably tells its own story. They can't defend and they can't score. It's a recipe for disaster, is it not?
Yeah, and I mean, thank God they didn't sell Strand Larsen because it felt like they wanted to, and I think they turned down 60 or 70 million from Newcastle. If he was gone, there would be no hope at all, and I don't think they have anyone to create chances for him, and maybe last season was just a season-long purple patch that some players can have, so
yeah, and
this feels too far gone.
It does start to feel like that, doesn't it? Because Gary O'Neill, I mean, look, bear in mind, the hope that they've got, isn't there, is that this time last season they were in exactly the same position. They had 2 points on the board, they hadn't won a game. They then were on a sort of run of 4 games unbeaten. Then they lost some, and then Gary O'Neill was sacked. And then Vitor Pereira came in and did a good job getting them out of it and keeping them alive. But as you quite rightly just pointed out, they had the safety net of the 3 promoted teams getting relegated again. So Ipswich Town, Leicester and Southampton. They don't have that this season. So that's going to be a real challenge for them.
Yeah, and I think on top of that is the fact that whenever they replace a manager, the fans will be speculating about all these really positive and kind of in fashion names. And then Jeff Shee, their owner, will go and get someone nobody's heard of. And yeah, they might do the job for that season, but they're not even, from the fans I've seen at the moment, they're not even letting themselves dream about getting a nice, positive manager to turn things around because they know what's going to happen. So they maybe got a little bit of joy today because there was a few rumours about John Textor, who left Crystal Palace this summer after the kind of debacle with UEFA. There was rumours about him buying the club today, but they seem very early stages, if they're even true at all. So maybe they get a bit more joy from that.
Yeah, and Pereira, obviously, we saw at the game yesterday, getting involved in a discussion, shall we say? That's a polite way of putting it, with some supporters at the end of the game, players getting in that same discussion. When you see these kind of things, it's a long way back, isn't it? I mean, it's only 3 or 4 months since Pereira was drinking pints in the pub with Wolves fans after their curious escape from relegation. That has now turned, the relationship seems to be turning sour. But who are Wolves going to realistically, do you think they should get rid of Pereira? And if they do, who realistically are they going to get in to do the job?
I think they have to get rid of him. I just don't think it's fueling a positive environment. I spoke about it a little bit in one of my podcasts last week, where there was a few teams where if they lost, it felt like the morale was going to be really bad and potentially unsavable. And when you see those sort of scenes, because it was obviously him shouting at the fans, but there was players involved as well. And there's just no coming back. There's no names that jump out at the moment, because I know Danny Roll went to Rangers. That probably would have been a name that they could have hoped about because he didn't have a job.
And one on Saturday. Oh, there's one on Sunday. One yesterday, which was Rangers' first home win of the season. Yeah.
So that felt like a name that they could have looked to, and now there doesn't feel like any huge popular names at the moment. So no doubt it will be a Portuguese manager managing in the arse end of nowhere,
Yeah,
and
quite possibly.
maybe he saves it.
So yes or no answer here for you, Nick. Or yes or no question, should I say? Are Wolves going to stay up this season?
No, it's very early, but there's nothing inspiring about that team.
Well, there you go. Right. Well, we're going to go from the bottom of the table to the very top in just a moment. But first, as Vito Pereira knows, although it's not doing him much good at the moment, it's important to select the right team. And here at the Global Sports Podcast Network, we spend a lot of time selecting our delivery platform, and Zencastr came out the clear winner. 4K video recording from your phone, AI editing that automatically removes all those ums and ahs. It is super easy to start a podcast that sounds great and is delivered efficiently, as you can hear, by the way, So if you're ready to tell your story, check out the link in the show description to learn a bit more about Zencastr. Right. Nick Bird, Arsenal fan extraordinaire, I'm going to ask you the question. Is the title race over already? What do you think?
It's far too early for it to be over. We've seen how quickly this league has shifted already. Only, I think it was 4-5 weeks ago, Liverpool were multiple games worth of points clear. I think it was 4 or 5 points clear. And now Arsenal are 4 clear of second, 6 clear of City, 7 clear of Liverpool. So things can change very quickly, but on the other hand, this is potentially the calmest I've been in one of our title races in the last 4 years. And usually at the start it was really sort of giddy and oh my god, we might actually win, to now it's just like we'll score eventually and we won't concede. We've still only conceded 1 open play goal all season. That's from potentially the best striker in the world in Haaland. So
yeah, and the other thing is, it's getting so ridiculous, right? It's getting so ridiculous. Is when on Sunday when they're playing Palace, I'm going to come to the game in just a moment. So yesterday when they're playing Palace, Palace had a shot, and a commentator got very, very excited because it looked for a moment like the shot was going on target, and he's like, nobody's had a shot on target against Arsenal, let alone score against them, and that's kind of how good it is, and it is, as I was saying to you off air. It had the air of the game had the air of, and indeed the team has the air of the Arsenal team from back in the day. And I can remember the Invincibles. And I can remember the old Tony Adams and Steve Bold hand in the air. Nigel Winterburn one side, Lee Dixon the other, hand in the air, offside, 1-0 to the Arsenal. And this team kind of has that feel to it. I mean, it wasn't a hyper exciting game yesterday. In fact, it was quite dull. But they got the goal, and they just didn't. They were just impenetrable at the back. And Palace, to be fair to them, threw what they could at them in the last 15 minutes, but Arsenal never really looked troubled.
No, that final 10 minutes was probably the most stressful that we've had all season, which is quite an alarm bell to send to the rest of the league, that you've really got to push to get even close, and they still didn't have a shot on target or really challenge Raya in that final 10 minutes. And the one shot on target was when Raya took the ball off Nketiah's forehead, basically, and it probably shouldn't have even gone down as an on-target shot. So,
well, it was a cross. It was a cross, really, wasn't it? It was a cross.
Yeah.
That's all. And the goalkeeper caught it a fraction of a second before Nketiah came in to head it. So, yeah, that's all it was.
So, I mean, it was a game yesterday where you knew that it was going to be a set piece that changed the game, because Palace's block was probably the best we faced all season, and they were just giving us nothing. Mendy didn't have a particularly strong game on the ball, which is probably his first kind of bad game, which feels harsh. But like you say, you win the ball against Arsenal, and you've still not got really any hope. And this is what I watched all the other games apart from City, because it was obviously at the same time, but I was watching the match of the day highlights, and even looking at their lineup before the game, it's like their midfield had alarm bells before they'd even started. And then I was watching the match of the day highlights, and they had Reinders as the 6, who was notoriously awful at defending at AC Milan, and you see in every highlight that Villa had attacking wise, and he was just getting bypassed. it was awful team selection, and Haaland's not going to score, then nobody else is going to score for them at the moment, is what it feels like. But then on to Chelsea and Liverpool, both of their out of possession structures looked awful, and I think that's the big differentiator between Arsenal and the others, where you're just not going to score against this Arsenal team, because even if you get a counter-attack, Arsenal will get the numbers back quicker than you, and this centre-back partnership is unbelievable. And even with Saliba coming off, Mosquera came on, you didn't really notice much difference, and that depth is crucial. And I know I've seen Arsenal fans saying it, but if Gabriel and Saliba get a Premier League title, then I think they go into some very interesting conversations about the best centre-back partnership in the club's history and potentially in the league's history. So it's just so easy at the moment for Arsenal.
Yeah, it is. It feels that way at the moment. It definitely feels that way. Let me ask you about Viktor Gjorkovic, because what sort of player is he? I can't quite make up my mind, because he doesn't look like a traditional kind of nine. He is the top scorer, but he's only scored 3 goals. He seems to drop in quite a lot and link up the play, and he works hard, but he doesn't look like scoring that often. What is your opinion of him? What should we expect from him going forward?
I think the linking up of the play is not really what he was bought for, but he's learnt and has improved on it basically every game. But I think the big thing for him was he's there and occupying defences more than Havertz was. Havertz, you could put one guy on, and although I love Havertz, I think he's shown why he was bought and was going to have a really good goal record before he got injured last year. But Gyökeres is occupying two defenders. It's then giving the wide players more time and less defenders to face. Saka kind of notoriously faces 2 or 3 players, and now he's getting chances one-on-one. So that's helping. But for Gyökeres, I think it was mainly that running in behind. If you watch all his goals at Sporting, it's running down the channels, and you're just not really going to get that much at Arsenal, because teams will very quickly get back in a mid to low block, and he's not aerially dominant despite his size. He just doesn't really score headed goals, and I think he's suffering as well from the fact Arsenal aren't creating loads from open play at the moment, which is potentially the only massive concern. But I also think it's kind of game state stuff at the moment, because Arsenal won, I think it was 3-0 against Forest, and had like 1 XG from open play, but won comfortably. So
Yeah,
I don't think he's doing as bad as the kind of noise is saying. I think Arsenal fans it's not this world-class guy who's constantly scoring to Haaland levels, but he's doing a job, and you're seeing, I wrote in my notes about these players coming back from injury probably after the international break are going to be huge, because these players are starting to look a little bit tired, and him primarily because he's playing 90 minutes constantly, because Havertz has been injured the whole season. So I think once we get some rest for him, things will look a lot better, which is like fine at the moment. I think you want a few more goals, but I'm not too concerned about how he's played.
Yeah, and they are sharing. I mean, you mentioned Haaland a few moments ago, saying that if he doesn't score, Man City don't score, and that's a very important point, because the work he's doing for the team, it is a team game. It's not just about one player. So if he is creating, he's allowed. I mean, Saka's got a couple, Timber's got a couple, Zubimendi's got a couple. Eze scored a great goal yesterday. It was a great finish, wasn't it?
Yeah.
It really, really was. And it had to be. It was always going to be against Crystal Palace, and who we left obviously in the summer to go to Arsenal. So yeah, well, it's an interesting assessment. If I was going to get you to get your crystal ball out finally on this issue, how many goals do you reckon he's going to score this season? What are we to expect
in the Premier League or
in the Premier
overall?
League? No, in the Premier League, because anybody can score a shed load of goals in Europe. We know how.
I think he needs to score at least 15. I think because Havertz was on course for pushing 20 before he got injured, so he'll have mixed mixed minutes once Havertz is fully fit, but I think 15 is fair to expect from him. And I think as this team gels more, there's been attention on how many players Liverpool are trying to integrate. I think Arsenal signed more players, and although the system is more defined than Liverpool's, you're still seeing the issues in terms of integration, I think. So when things are a bit more fluid, I think we'll see more goals from open play for him.
It'll get even better to strike a chill of terror down the spines of every single Premier League team. It's going to get better for Arsenal. Goodness me! So I'm going to ask you. I didn't mean to do. I didn't set out to do this at the start of the podcast. By the way, it's just arrived like this. I'm going to ask you my second yes or no question of the day. In that case, are Arsenal going to win the Premier League? Yes or no?
At the moment, yes. It's the most comfortable I felt as an Arsenal fan in terms of our title hopes in the past 4 or 5 years, so I have to say yes at the moment.
Your daily soccer podcast with the Global Sports Podcast Network.
You're listening to the Daily Premier League podcast, part of the Global Sports Podcast Network. Thank you for making this your regular listen for all your news and views from the Premier League. We are going to finish off this podcast today looking at two sides in the northeast, really. Sunderland have taken the league a little bit by storm after getting promoted, and Newcastle, their great rivals, have had a bit of a slow start, it's fair to say. If you look at the league table, we are looking at Sunderland in the heady heights, and it is heady heights, of fourth position, 17 points from 9 games. And then Newcastle, who of course finished in the top 4 last season and are playing Champions League football, you're scrolling down and down and down, you get to 12th. So 12 points from 9. Now, it's only early days, yet to double figures in terms of games played, and only a very, 5 points between them. How good is my maths? 5 points between them. So, yeah, I mean, look, who's the better team? It's an interesting one because you feel that Sunderland are playing above their level because nobody expected them to do this well. And what a joy it is, by the way, to see a Championship team promoted and then taking the league by storm. Newcastle, you feel after all the Alexander Isak drama of the summer, bringing in 2 strikers late in the day, one of whom hasn't played yet because he's been injured. That's Johan Wissa. Voltemada's done well and he's hit the ground running, but it still feels like they're settling into their season. Nick, what are your thoughts on all of this? Let's start with Sunderland. How impressed have you been with them so far?
Really impressed. I watched their full game at the weekend, and I texted my mates quite early into the second half saying Sunderland will definitely steal this late because their block was incredible. It was quite passive until the ball went wide, and then there was 3 or 4 players to hound either Neto or Garnacho, and Chelsea never looked like scoring. They could still be playing now, and they wouldn't have scored. Whereas Sunderland were getting chances on the break and committing probably like 4 players every time, but they still had a lot of players back. So even if Chelsea quickly won the ball and went the other way, they were ready to sit deep in their block again. So Sunderland are far better than I think anyone was expecting, but I'm sure it will sort of regress to the mean. But they'll definitely, I think it's kind of safe to say now that they'll stay up, which we couldn't say for any promoted team for quite a while. 9 games into a season.
9 games into the season. Not this early. I mean, there is a long way to go, but they've shown enough already, haven't they, to suggest that they could easily be, top 12 side this year. It will get harder. It's always second half of the season is always harder for promoted teams because the surprise element has gone. If you don't have that experience of playing in the Premier League, it's a real drag. It's hard work week in, week out, getting points on the table. And I always think that the most important thing that promoted teams can do when they come up to the Premier League is get points on the board early. Get points on the board early when you've still got that promotion momentum behind you, when you're still a little bit of an unknown quantity in the Premier League. And when other teams are kind of adjusting as they do, get points on the board early. And to be fair, Sunderland have done that to a slightly lesser extent. Leeds have done that. Burnley, again, they had a great win, as we've talked about already, at Wolves. And after 9 games, to find all 3 promoted teams out of the relegation zone is some going. But Sunderland seem to have got it right because they've got a solid defence and they've got people who can score. And Isidore scored again at the weekend. And we wondered last year, can he make that step up to the Premier League? And he's doing it. And he's doing it well.
Yeah, I looked at the attacks of all 3 of the promoted teams and was thinking they're all going to struggle, it felt like. But Isidore's massively surprised me. And even for their winner, as much as it is painful to watch the defending from the 2 Chelsea centre-backs, Robbie holds him off and then they go.
He held him off. Sorry to interrupt. He held him off.
That's right.
But Chelsea was so passive. They didn't make any attempt to get the ball off him, did they? He literally just stood behind us. I know he's in the area, so you don't want to risk giving away a penalty, but for goodness sake, try and get the ball.
Yeah. I mean, force him to kind of go down the line and try and beat Sanchez from a really difficult angle. Don't just stand off him and then let Talby just pass it back. But I don't know if you've seen the analysis on Match of the Day where they show the full field, but the ball goes long and then I think it's Caicedo and someone else, I can't remember who it was, kind of just walking back expecting the centre-backs to deal with it. And about 2 or 3 players just sprint past them. And that was kind of happening all game to Chelsea. They just weren't tracking back, and that's the same issue Liverpool have been having, where they're not working hard to get back into their shape. So Sunderland just felt inevitable they were going to score on the counter at some point in this game, and they did, and got what will probably be quite a famous victory.
Yeah, and they got the reward for being brave, and that's what we like to see. Newcastle, similarly, a good win, and I think a much-needed win, albeit very late in the day on Saturday against Fulham. Bruno Guimaraes scoring in the dying moments of that game for a 2-1 win. Their season sort of stuttered, but they had a very good win last week against Benfica in the Champions League, followed up with a league win against Fulham. They will hope that this will kick their season on, because it hasn't quite felt like it's got going yet.
No, I was looking at their results and it's win 1, lose or draw 1, win 1, lose or draw 1. So they need to find some momentum. They need kind of someone other than Voltemade to really hold some form in the attack, because Anthony Gordon hasn't scored in the Premier League since January. So you could do with a little bit of help from him, as he's kind of your star attacker otherwise. But they play West Ham next week, so they should finally win back-to-back Premier League games this season.
Yeah,
but I've not got too many concerns about them having a good season. It doesn't look like it's going to be a Champions League qualifying season for them at the moment.
Well, they need to, not at the moment, but they've got it in them. And I think Johan Wissa, when he's in and fit, if you can get him in and fit and firing, is great. Anthony Gordon's had it. I think Gordon, you're right, he hasn't scored. And they, of course, tried to play him as a 9 earlier on in the season when Voltemade wasn't available or hadn't come yet. And Isak obviously wasn't ever going to come. Didn't work. Harvey Barnes, likewise, will chip in with the odd goal here, although they don't have a natural striker other than Voltemade. And Wissa can play there, but obviously we're waiting for him to come into the team after his injury. They've obviously got the rigours of Champions League football, and it is difficult playing, Wednesday, Saturday, or wherever they're going to play. But that midweek game is hard. So squad depth might be an issue with them. So it'll be interesting, won't it? It'll be interesting to see who is going to finish higher. If I was going to put you on the spot, who would you say?
Certainly Newcastle. Sunderland have to fall away at some point. As much as a miracle season would be quite funny, a miracle season to an extent that doesn't impact Arsenal's Premier League title hopes, but they're going to fall away at some point, because teams will adapt to what you're doing, and as much as sitting deep in a low block passively and trying to hit on the counter will work in some games, you're going to, especially with how much this league's dominated by set pieces so far, even if you're blocking them out from open play, they're going to cause you issues from set pieces. And Chelsea are a team who don't seem to want to use that. Using Maresca's own words, he said he's not going to use throw-ins, which would set alarm bells off if that was my manager.
Massively already. I mean, look, everybody is using them. Everybody's using them, and they're proving to be very successful. So I don't know quite. I don't get his thinking in that. I mean, that's a bit too kind of purist and maybe arrogant. But look, everybody's doing it, so just get on a bus would be my advice, and do it as well because it's working.
Yeah, we saw what happened with Ange being very stubborn around his set pieces last year. They kept conceding from them. In his last game at Forest, they conceded 3 last weekend. So you just kind of have to adapt to what the league is, and if you're not going to, you will be the victim of it. And Sunderland got that win partially because of a great throw-in, and it's not necessarily the first phase of those long throws. It's can you win the second balls? And it was something I wrote in my notes about Liverpool. They've moved away from physically dominating to small technical players, and now Slot is suffering with those second balls. So
yeah, we're seeing a lot of it, aren't we? We're seeing a lot of those second balls go in, and whoever is attacking them, and Brentford are the pass masters. Seeing as you mentioned Liverpool, there, their first goal particularly was exactly that. And very good. Right, okay. Well, that brings today's episode to a close. Nick, you're back on tomorrow, aren't you? You're back on with Victor.
I am. I'm sure we'll talk Man United because Victor is a United fan, and they probably had their best game under Amorim at the weekend. So I'm sure we'll talk that.
Yeah, I said at the top of the show, you're looking pretty pleased with yourself. I'm sure Victor's feeling very buoyant at the moment. I'm not sure, though. I had this discussion with Ken the other day, and he's, Man United back. I'm not 100% convinced by any of it yet. We've had a couple of good results, but I think there's a lot about Man United still that I think needs ironing out. So we'll leave that discussion for you and Victor tomorrow. So do join Nick tomorrow. But until then, thank you very much indeed for listening. Have a great rest of your day or evening, wherever you are in the world. Look after yourselves, look after each other. Goodbye.